All right, Alexander, let's answer the questions that came in during our live stream with Larry Johnson. And let's begin. From David S. Super chat. Thank you, David S. From Raphael. I believe NATO and the EU are under military threats from the US. All their leaders are forced against their wills to act like this. Something is weird. And the second part to Raphael's question was, we are witnessing the barbarians getting in Rome. The slaves in Haiti beating Napoleon. Russia is changing the whole structure of the world for better.
I agree with the second. I'm not so sure about the first, in the sense that, in the one important sense, that I get the impression that some of these Western leaders, these European leaders, are utterly enthusiastic or have been enthusiastic about what they've been doing. They didn't need threats from the US. They wanted to do it, and let's not, think otherwise.
All right. Judah, thank you very much for that super chat. Jesse says, thank you for your excellent analysis. I found out about your show from Mike Enoch from therightstuff.biz. Thank you very much, Jesse, for that. Kyle, thank you for super sticker. Popey, thank you for super sticker. Commander Crossfire says, have you heard about Abram Petrovich Gannabel?
Yeah, wasn't he the person who was Peter the Great's official, who was actually Ethiopian? He emigrated. He was brought to Russia. I can't quite remember in what way, but he arrived in Russia, became a member of Peter the Great's court, and became quite an important figure in Russian politics in the 18th century, and is an ancestor of the poet Pushkin, who actually wrote a story about him. That's all I can tell you about him. I'm not, fully familiar with all the details, but he's quite an interesting man. And if you see pictures of Putin, you can see that he has slight African features, of course, despite, being a Russian.
Okay, Golden Sun says, can Larry speak about Baltic black sites?
Right, I think that's one that we must have passed on to him, because I can't.
Okay. Tyler Durden says, does Romania have any chance to become neutral like Finland used to be? P.S. I just read Zero Hedge, nothing else. I just read Zero Hedge, nothing else.
At the moment, I just don't see it. And I mean, it's fully integrated into NATO. The political class in Romania is owned, by NATO and the EU. And it's important to say that Romania and Russia have had long-standing difficult relations. I mean, there have been times when they've been friends and allies, principally against the Ottomans. But there's always this big issue, this quarrel about Moldova, which is largely Romanian-speaking, and which Romania considers should be part of its territory, and which has been at various times part of the Tsarist Empire, which is now an independent country, and the Russians want to keep it that way. So I don't really see this happening anytime soon.
Okay, from Jennifer Chang, everyday reader of Larry's blog, Taiwanese, U.S. educated, has great pleasure to do business with U.S. customers. Today, U.S. political made me so sad and mad. I love the Sovietization of America in American Gulag. Very true.
Yeah, so did I.
Thank you.
It was a great piece,
Thank
actually.
you very much, Jennifer. Yes. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for that. AICI says, Achi says, did you hear that the U.S. Embassy in Moscow uses number coordinates on their website instead of the newly changed address? Unfortunately, very funny.
I know. We mentioned that we discussed it. We touched on this briefly in the program.
Yes. Tricky Truck says Putin is a great strategist, but he is definitely not the virtuous man people made him out to be. He could have started this operation much earlier.
Well, let's not call him a virtuous man. I mean, he's a strong and effective leader. As to the second point, lots of people say this. We don't have all the information as to how this thing happened. I will only repeat what I long believe. 2014, 2015, when many people were expecting to launch an operation like this, I don't think Russia was ready. I think the Russian economy would have buckled under the kind of sanctions we see now. And I think at the very least, the last 8 years have been spent hardening the economy to prepare for this sanctions attack, and we see that it's largely succeeded.
Budweiser, thank you for that super sticker. Zionic 8, thank you for that super sticker. Summer of 1970, thank you for that super sticker. Sam Soto says, hi Alex, every time I hear you say Elensky without the ominous Z, it reminds me of the German word elend, which means wretched, miserable. Truly spot on. Pun, at least for German natives. Thank you for that super chat. Robert Jarava says, when will we see full disclosure on Western corruption uncovered in Ukraine? What is the depth of the corruption? Have there been Western atrocities?
Yeah, I'm sure there's been enormous corruption, and I'm sure there's at least Western involvement in atrocities. I think the Russians will do pretty thorough investigations and will report on them. Whether they'll be reported in the West is another matter. I doubt it.
Veteran support, thank you for your super chat. Jocko Slapbass says, Alex Thompson, GCHQ, claims there's very credible evidence that the Anglo-American power structure financed all sides of World War II. Is that true?
Well, that's been a story that's been spoken about hugely. It's been claimed by various parties. I have to say, academic historians don't confirm it. I mean, they don't support those claims. But, that doesn't mean it isn't true, because, of course, what gets into academic histories is obviously sometimes not entirely comprehensive. But I've no evidence. I've never seen any conclusive evidence that this is the case, that they did it intentionally quite the way you think. They did have commercial relations with Germany before the war, but that they continued to fund Germany afterwards, after the war began. I've never really seen evidence of that myself.
All right, Euro Gabor says, here's a little token to support Alexander's I Need a Cat fund. Thank you very much, Euro Gabor.
I have a cat. I've got two, actually.
Yeah.
As well as two dogs.
Novus Black, thank you very much for that super chat. Let's see, Marty White says, thank you for that super chat. Thank you for that super chat, Marty White. And Sanjeva says, one of two parts. The BBC audit about Russian deaths, the methodology used is impractical. To count deaths by auditing funerals in a country like Russia would need hundreds of auditors. Dissidents don't hire that many as then they need to. Part 2 says the funds given by the Western source, what dissidents used to do is to just make up numbers. The numbers provided by the BBC is similar to Russian forums, but they were just guessing using LDNR stats.
Absolutely correct. All that you say is absolutely right. But I would just add one point, which is that the BBC is extremely disappointed by the low numbers, relatively no numbers, that it's producing. It shows figures of deaths, total Russian deaths of around 4,000, whereas Ukraine has been claiming 30,000, and that's what's been reproduced by places like the BBC and other sources. So, I agree. I don't pay very much attention to this, but it's not producing the figures that the BBC expected.
From Eurogabor, are you predicting that Poland, Romania, Hungary, even Belarus will take territories away from Ukraine, or is this just a clear-cut Russian-run show played by Russian rules for Russian audience only?
I think we'll have to wait and see. I think it's possible that all those countries will act if and when they see Ukraine disintegrating. But the Russians have warned against it, and at the moment it seems that their policy is to see this thing through with Ukraine itself, and that they don't want third parties, Hungary, Poland, even Belarus, interfering in Ukraine. So we'll see how this plays out. I mean, we don't know yet.
All right, from Marty, British people to be despised minority by 2060, save the Britons, support patriotic alternative.
Lots of people talking like that in Britain. I suspect that's going to grow.
From Novus, the Netherlands are one of the biggest food exporters on the planet. If we fall, everyone will suffer. Stock up on more than just food.
Yeah, absolutely, quite true.
From Jungle Jin, how can Russia afford to stop at the Dnieper and leave a militarized and Nazified rump connected to Europe near its European underbelly?
We touched on this during the program, but lots of people in Russia are asking that very same question. I mean, most Russians want to press on, I think, all the way to Lviv. I think if you were to do a, poll, that there won't be such a poll done in Russia, but most Russians feel that they should continue all the way to Lviv because otherwise Ukraine in some form will always be a threat.
Tim Gibson, thank you for that super sticker. Karen de Corse, thank you for that super sticker. Angry Warhawk says, do you think Germany will break free from Washington's control?
We discussed this briefly in the program. I'm skeptical, to be honest, for the moment. I don't think that Germany is going to break away from Washington anytime soon. Larry took a different view, and as I understood it, he sees economic divergences growing, and that sooner or later this will lead to a break. But we'll just have to see. I'm frankly more pessimistic about this.
Summer of 1970 says the mad doctrine linchpin is nuclear submarines. Use of nukes is really madness under any circumstance.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I think we shouldn't talk about use of nukes, nuclear weapons. By the way, the Russians are saying that. They've always been talked about, threatening the use of nuclear weapons. They deny it. They say it's all the threats, all the talk is in the West.
Easy A says, wow, listening to Larry, it's like watching Raw Homeland Season 9. Quick question. Is the European actions irreversible? And if so, where does this leave us? Where does this leave us British?
Yeah, I don't think it's irreversible in the sense that I think in theory and perhaps in practice, we could see European politicians and in British politicians acting to reverse these policies. But make no mistake about it, the damage has been done. The Russians have seen what the Europeans have done, and they will never trust them again. And that's going to have long-term implications for the future. The big gas trade, the era of the great gas deals, the big trading deals between Europe and Russia, they're in their history.
And Zimmerman says, Germany was never properly denazified after the war, as this was a practical impossibility. What are the chances that Russia will be able to completely denazify the ex-Ukrainian territories?
I think it can be done. And I think it will be done in Ukraine. I think you must understand that in Germany, this was a home, an ideology that grew out of the ground. It was organic to Germany and to German society and was explicable in terms of German history and German culture. In Ukraine, even though it's put down deep roots, it's still imported. And I think that it can be uprooted if this is done methodically and properly, which I think the Russians will do.
All right. Elena says, does Larry think the LDPR will go through with the death penalty of the British plus Moroccan mercenaries?
I don't know what Larry thinks, and maybe we should ask him. But personally, I think they will. I think the purpose of this is to deter others from coming to fight in Ukraine. So I think they will do it. Having said that, I hope they don't, because I'm not somebody who wants to see people die.
Yov, Bressler, thank you for that super chat. Sparky says, time to negotiate saving any of Ukraine is over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that may very well be true.
Thank you very much for that, Sparky. Mark 1 says, report what is happening in the Netherlands with the farmers. The mainstream news is blocking it. It's huge what's going on there, and people need to know.
It is huge.
It's getting out.
Huge. It's getting out. And I think we've discussed it now in various programs on the Duran. I mean, Alex has been covering it extensively. So it's big. It is big news. But we are covering it, undoubtedly.
Tucker Carlson covered it yesterday as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's getting out now, in a big way. Horse and Carte Blanche says, what's the likelihood that America can trim down its three-letter agencies and limit the oppression from its own deep state? Or do you think that a decline in intelligence agencies is not likely?
I don't think that it's likely for the moment. I mean, remember, governments do need intelligence agencies. Even a government, even if, say, there's a complete change of government in the United States, a government determined to bring the intelligence agencies under control, a country like the United States needs intelligence services. That's the reality. But you can do things to bring them under control. They have been under control in the past. You have to uproot lots and lots of people within them. It can be done. Though always the danger is, if you don't keep doing it on a regular basis, then the problems we've seen at the moment will reproduce themselves.
RNI says, thank you, Alex and Alexander. Your work is very much appreciated. God bless Russia. Thank you, RNI, for that. Mir Peace says, do you think that considering the lack of Ukrainian troops, they will use the Polish army or even Lithuania?
It's not impossible. I mean, obviously, there would have to be an invitation to the Poles to come in, but it's not impossible. I was watching the Military Summary channel just the other day, and they were describing the forces that Ukraine is deploying now in eastern Ukraine. And what really struck me is that, they're now sending into battle Belarusian and Russian volunteers. In other words, dissidents. And they've been cobbled together into battalions, and they're being thrown into the front line, which suggests to me that their recruitment problems are getting extremely severe.
And they're recruiting women, I'm hearing as well.
Absolutely, as well. Yeah.
Can't confirm that, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Sparky says, go CIA, take the FBI with you. Thank you very much, Sparky, for that. Sparky also says, Dutch need to wear yellow vests for their farmers.
Yeah, well, it might
They're actually
might
wearing
even
a bandana, a scarf. Actually.
That's right. But, they'll all link up. Eventually, they will all link up. Of that, there's no doubt.
Nitswitch says, any news about German tanks captured by the Russians? Must be only a matter of time.
I don't think it's yet happened. I mean, if you're talking about tanks, Leopard 1s and Leopard 2s, so far, as far as I know, none have been supplied. If you're talking about these Gepard anti-aircraft tanks, which apparently are very difficult to use, I don't think any have been captured, but several apparently have been destroyed. It's only a matter of time before some are captured. But this is old stuff, old tanks designed in the 1960s. So not up-to-date weapon systems at all.
Ralph Peterson says thanks. Thank you, Ralph, for that. Alvin Spencer, thank you for your super chat. Mere Peace says, does Larry Johnson think that Russia will take all Ukraine or at least even more territory, because it seems they need a buffer zone, but also whatever remains of Ukraine, it can't threaten Russia?
Well, Larry on the
answered this.
Yeah, I think Larry on the program said up to Dnieper. I mean, I'm starting to think they're going to go beyond that.
Zionic 8 says, for your fast typing, Lady Cosmica, good night from Oz. Thank you very much, Zionic 8. And Jinsa says, territory near the UK embassy in Moscow has officially been renamed the Lugansk People's Republic Square. Maybe UK will also use location coordinates. We talked about that.
Well, what they're actually doing is they're using the old address, which of course may mean that the post office, the Russian post, refuses to deliver the letters. So that's quite a thought.
Reefy00 says, Google whistleblower Tarif Simone, Michael E. Debakovi, VA is contaminated water, the Duran and Fault Lines Radio, the two best shows ever. Free Assange.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Veteran Support says, what would it look like if NATO does get involved inside Ukraine, boots on the ground?
World War III, first step towards it. That's why I don't think it's going to happen. Not NATO. Polish troops, Romanian troops perhaps. I don't think NATO as an organisation will enter Ukraine. Even Pompeo has ruled it out.
Tim Gibson, thank you for that super sticker. George Lenormand says, thanks for having Mr. Johnson on the show. Best conversation on any media. Thank you for that. T. Slee says, Lugansk first because of the titanium dioxide export. Donetsk has the iron metallurgic titanium, and the big field is below the airport. Purest, most biggest, and easiest titanium in the world.
Wow, no idea. I didn't know any about that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Sparky says, Carpetbagger Ukraine failed. Russian Ukraine won't.
No, I agree with that too, actually. That's a topic for a big discussion, perhaps when the war is over. But I agree. I think that Ukraine, if it's integrated with Russia, will boom. I mean, their synergies are very strong.
Trevelyan Gale, thank you for that super sticker. Corn Pops Revenge says, fellow Floridian here, I agree. You were far too kind regarding the intelligence of the American general public. No one understands the Zionist takeover of our media, government, and intellectual institutions.
Okay. I mean, I hear all of that.
War Wagon says the ignorance of the U.S. Populace is due to the destruction of the public school system.
I think that is, everything that I'm hearing about the state of the public school system tends to support the fact that it's suffered terrible damage. And, of course, all sorts of strange ideas, which I'm not going to name or discuss, but you all know what I'm talking about. They can't be helping.
Joanne Orloskas, thank you for that super sticker. Toy Chung, thank you for that super sticker. Popes, thank you for that super sticker. And from Zukzuksi, thank you, gentlemen. Very interesting stream. Colin Jones, thank you for that super sticker. And Sparky says the American education system filters out people capable of original thought, instead producing brainwashed drones. It wasn't always that way.
I completely agree. It's also true in Britain. By the way, it's also true in certain academic disciplines in Britain. I mean, Russian studies has become a horror.
Rasco1717 says, keep up the great work. We need alternative outlets like this. Do you guys think Ukraine will lose territorial access to the Black Sea?
Yes. It's a short word. I think, it's only basically got Odessa and Nikolaev left. And I'm sure they will be gone by the end of this war.
Jeffrey says, I've heard only 5.6% of Taiwan wants to leave China. Is this true?
I don't know. I've never seen the polls. All I will say is that the Taiwanese Independence Party tends to win elections at the moment. So let's be realistic about this.
Sekou Drame, thank you for that super sticker. And Jeffrey Rock says, how impactful is Russian air power in the war?
I think it's actually a lot more impactful than some commentaries are making out. I mean, it's less visible because what Russian aircraft tend to do is launch long-range missiles, and they do so from positions of invisibility, virtual invisibility. But I think they're pretty active. Their helicopters are extremely active. And, of course, pretty much every day you hear about more Ukrainian aircraft getting shot down and very, very few Russian getting shot down. So I think it's much more effective than some articles are suggesting.
All right. Those are all the questions from the live stream with Larry Johnson. Thank you very much, everybody.